got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes. I only got one thing on my mind. You got me stuck on the thought of you. You're making me feel brand new. You're more than a sunshine in my eyes. I'm feeling like this might be my time to shine with you, with you, with you. I got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes.
Hi, welcome to In the Middle and Out of the Box, episode 31. So, we're going to do a lot of things today. First of all, again, can you please like, subscribe, send me an email, inthemiddlebdh@gmail.com. All that kind of interaction helps my podcast. We're doing great. We're getting more subscribers. I'm setting my goal again at 100 per month. And we're approaching 600 right now, on our way to 700. And we're hoping that we can get enough subscribers and likes and people watching. So we've got to get our views up. So first thing I want to do, though, today is a little bit of housekeeping. So we've been doing 31 episodes now, and I kind of want to go back to originally what I had originally said, and actually the first episode. And it's so funny to go back to the first episode and actually look at myself from the first episode. We've come so far as how we do our podcast, our background, our technology, our sound. So we've come a long way. But basically the message is that, it's really about Boca, Delray, and Highland Beach. We're all so close to each other. And we both live maybe in Delray and work in Boca, or work in Boca and live in Delray, or vice versa, or Highland Beach. And we're crossing these borders all day long, whether it's going to a restaurant, whether it's going to a school, whether it's going to a job, going to Brightline, whatever. And we all, as towns, have the same issues, traffic, development. There's just so many issues that we're all dealing with right now as far as, affordable housing, climate change, things like that. So resiliency. So what my point of this podcast is that although we might all look different, right? So we know that Delray looks different than Boca because Boca has higher buildings, and Delray has more restrictions on that. And Highland Beach looks different than Delray or Boca, actually. So it's a very unique community too. It's not about Delray and Boca or Highland Beach and don't Boca my Delray and don't Delray my Boca. That's not what this is about. So in the last episode, in episode 30, I talked about affordable housing or workforce housing. And, a lot of people were like, oh, well, that's in Boca. That doesn't affect me. So I'm just going to fast forward it. And it's like, well, no. The point is that Boca, kudos to them. I mean, this is a huge step forward for Boca to even entertain workforce housing. And it was a fantastic plan that they came up with, so much so that I said, you know what, 10% isn't enough. We need 15%. And, regardless of what the buildings look like in Boca, we had a lot of people comment about, well, I don't like the buildings. They look very Miami-esque, or I don't like high rises, or it's not about the buildings. It was about the fact that Boca finally did some workforce housing and is on its way to do some workforce housing. So hopefully that Delray will emulate that, because Delray has done very little of that. So again, it's not about what it looks like. It's about the fact that Boca made this huge step for a city to start doing some affordable housing, which was a big step for Boca. Okay. So anyway, so I just want to get back to, we all might look different in our towns, and our towns might be high, low, whatever, but we all should be helping each other. And I always go back to the same mantra, I guess you want to say, that it doesn't matter that, Boca maybe is doing something better or Delray is doing something better. If we're all together, we should be utilizing each other to help each other, right? As far as using templates or systems or processes that we're using that would be helpful to each other. So that's kind of what this podcast is about. It's kind of showing what's going on in the towns. And, a lot of people say, well, I just fast forward to my town. Well, that kind of defeats the purpose, right? So if another town is doing something that might really be good for your town to do, if you're just fast forwarding to your town, you're not going to know about it, right? I've had a lot of people say to me, oh, I didn't catch that, or I didn't see that because I was watching only Delray, or I was only watching Boca or Highland Beach. So again, I know it sounds crazy, but what everybody does right around us affects us, right? As far as traffic, as far as development, as far as resiliency, right? It's kind of when you have a next door neighbor that's redone their seawall and you haven't, and their seawall's up here and your seawall's down here, it's going to affect you, right? Because water's just going to come around the seawall. So, neighbors are really important as far as our cities and towns. And so that's kind of what this podcast is about, learning from each other, utilizing the best things, not having to recreate the wheel at certain things. So I just kind of want to clarify that. So because it seems like we're kind of losing that as far as people just fast forwarding to their town, or, like I said, not liking maybe the design of the workforce housing in Boca. Again, it's okay. That's not the point. So we got to move on. We got to get past that Delray Boca rivalry, and then poor Highland Beach is kind of in the middle. So anyway, so that's kind of where we're at. So I just wanted to kind of go through that a little bit. What I would like to do though this week is, I really am encouraging you guys to interact with me. So what I'd like to do is, I'm up to episode 31 now. And what I would like to hear from you is if you want to email me, if you don't want to put it on the YouTube comments, that's fine. Again, in the middle, bdh@gmail.com. BDH, so Boca, Delray, Highland Beach, is what I'd like to do. You guys have an assignment this week. And it's basically email me, comment, whatever, trying to hopefully be positive. And what this podcast has helped you. Have you learned anything? Do you do things differently? Do you maybe look at things a little bit differently as far as your perspective? Do you look at things like you wouldn't have even thought of if you didn't watch this podcast? Because again, this is really trying to give you guys some thought, right? Some perspective different than what you're normally used to, kind of out of the box thinking. So I really want to know is this podcast being effective? Are you guys able to utilize anything that you learned? So it would really be helpful to me. So if you can send me an email, drop a line, put it on the YouTube comments, whatever you want to do is great. But I'd like to hear some feedback of how this podcast has helped you, and maybe had you look at things differently or not, or whatever. So whatever you want to say to me is great. Any feedback is perfect. Okay, so we're going to stop with that there. That was a little housekeeping. And then what I do want to do, though, is quickly talk about Brightline real quick. We have a lot of controversy about Brightline, and I don't know why there is controversy. Okay, so Brightline is not a discount commuter train. It doesn't stop at every station. It is bare bones. Commuter trains are like Tri-Rail and so forth. They're not luxurious. They're not full service. This is not a commuter train. And I don't understand why people are having such a hard time with it. Yes. Is it expensive? Yes. No one's disagreeing. But if you'd like to go out, like my husband and I utilize it once in a while, we'll go down to Miami, we'll go down to Fort Lauderdale. Eventually, I'm assuming we're going to go up to Orlando, but we don't do it weekly. But they do sell weekly commuter passes for people that work in other cities. I think they sell student passes. So again, it's not that it's not expensive, but my point is that you can't compare it to a commuter train. That's not what it is. It's a full service luxury train, basically high-speed train. So, it's going to be continuing to progress through the states, right, through the country. And their next one is out in, I think it's going from Las Vegas to California. Now, everyone says, well, why isn't Brightline going faster? We go to Europe. I've been to Europe too. They go much faster over there. Well, Brightline has a lot of restrictions that would put on it because of the urban areas that it's going through, highly populated areas and so forth. They put in millions and millions of dollars into safety, education, but we can't change people's behaviors, right? So again, I want to clarify that they have been found not liable for any of the accidents or deaths so far. If people go around gates, if people stay on the tracks, if people want to commit suicide, there's nothing you can do, right? So they have found, again, it's very sad, but they have been not found liable in any of these. So, we've got to somehow change people's behavior. And that's a difficult thing to do. I'm sure a lot of you know people that you've tried to change behavior, and it's very, very difficult. So I just wanted to kind of go around again and say they are going to be continuing to go out over the country. They're going to be doing Las Vegas to California. They're going to be doing in excess of 185 to 200 miles an hour there. Because think about that, right? They're out in the desert, they're out in the West. There's less people, less population. So the restrictions are less. They don't have to stay at a certain speed. So, yes, in Europe, there is very populated areas. They go through at high speeds. But you have to remember, this is like baby steps for the US, right? This is the first real foray into high-speed trains. So eventually this is going to be commonplace and it's not going to be such a big deal. But we're having a hard time even getting Florida going without any incidents, right? Because people's behavior. So again, it's just one of those things. So I did want to show real quick the bright line map that was shown up at Orlando for the opening of the station. I found it online. Somebody had sent it. It's called Brightline 2.0. And basically, they're just showing other areas that they've isolated in the country that they're going to be going to next. You can actually see the Las Vegas line right there to Los Angeles. And I know that this does not show the stop in up in by, well, I don't want to say Disney. It originally was Disney. Then it went back because Orlando said, well, why are they getting a stop? I'm sorry. Universal said, why are they getting a stop? So then Universal said, we're going to donate you some land and you can use our land as a stop. And that way it's in the middle between Disney and Universal. So that's kind of what they agreed upon. It's gone back and forth a couple times. I think there is going to be a stop there. It's just a matter of where. Okay. But again, then it's going to go to Tampa, right? We know that for a definite. There's also going to be a stop along the Treasure Coast. They have to, within 5 years of first day of Orlando, within 5 years, the time is ticking, have to have a stop now on the Treasure Coast. That was part of the agreement. Where that's going to be, there's rumors, Stewart, Cocoa Beach, no one knows, okay? So, but there is going to be another stop. And then there's also going to be a stop in between Universal and Disney, and then Tampa. So anyway, but the point of this map was just to show you that they've already isolated where they're going to be going in the future, and they're going to be high speed. And again, it depends on where they're going through. And by then, hopefully more and more acceptance and people's behaviors will change. So I thought that was really interesting to see where they're going to be heading. Okay, so in this episode, we're going to go over mandated flood insurance that's coming. And then we're going to be going over flooding issues and concerns in our towns. I do have a little bit of a Disney update for you. And we have now our new category of social awareness. And then we have our science, technology, and art. Okay, so today's episode is very important. So today's episode is about mandatory flood insurance that's coming for people in South Florida. Okay, so basically, I have to give you a little bit of history. So FEMA redid their maps that hadn't been done in decades. And of course, when they redid their maps, we all know, between king tides and climate change and flooding and everything else that's going on, a lot more areas were in flood zones. So Palm Beach County took them to court and said, we're not adopting these, because if we adopt these, everybody basically in Palm Beach County is going to need flood insurance. And they fought in court since 2018-19, and Palm Beach County lost. So now these flood maps are going to start being in effect. Hopefully, I think by the end of the year, they're going to start putting them in effect. Like I said, they lost the appeal. So basically, after the appeal, what happened is Palm Beach County lost. And so now these new flood maps are going to be coming into effect. And they're going to be coming into effect by the end of the year, they're estimating, maybe early next year. And once that happens, the majority of people are going to be in flood zones. Now, the first misnomer is that most people are like, oh, that doesn't affect me because I don't live on the ocean or near the ocean. That's a misnomer, okay? So flood insurance is not only for the barrier islands or the intercoastal properties. Flood insurance goes all the way west, okay? Because you have low-lying areas, you have canals, you have areas that are prone to flooding based on their topography. So here, if for example, is a map of Boca. And this is showing everywhere you see colors. So you'll see all different flood zones. You'll see blues, light blues, dark blues, reds, yellows. Anywhere there's a flood zone, you're going to be required to have flood insurance. So that's a big part of Boca. Okay. And there's a lot of areas in there that are blue, dark blue, light blue, yellow, and not just near the ocean. So you have to remember again, canals, flood prone areas, low lying areas. We have a lot of those in Boca. So again, these maps hadn't been dated and have not been updated in decades. So they finally came out with these maps. So I want to first say kudos to Boca Raton. And, I pat them on the back for this because they just sent out a release to everybody. I think it was an email or Twitter, just to let people know that these are the preliminary maps and to kind of prep them of what's coming. So this isn't a big, huge surprise. So I give them a lot of kudos for that because I'm sure people are panicking, and but they have to start letting you guys know, right, what's going on. So the fact that they are actually communicating this ahead of schedule and being proactive about it is definitely, a moment of kudos for the city, right? So I really think that's great. They're telling you these are preliminary right now, but they are going to be going into effect. Again, Palm Beach County has been fighting in court. They lost their first case, they lost their appeal, and they're anticipating the end of the year. Doug Weiss, the Palm Beach County Director of Planning, Zoning, and Building Division, stated most homes in Palm Beach are in a flood zone and are affected. So there's a large amount of homes that are in a flood zone and affected. Also, depending on the type of insurance you have, Citizens Insurance and along with some other ones that have just recently also signed up to the same new policy, which is like Citizens is starting all properties starting in January 2024, all structures with replacement value over $600,000, regardless of what flood zone you're in. You could be in a no flood zone, have to have flood insurance. So, again, this is from lessons learned, right? We know that, like with Ian last year, that swept across the whole state. There was areas, in Orlando and in the middle of state and that aren't in flood zones, not near water, whatever, that got inundated, right? So, tornadoes and everything else. So they're stating, these new insurance regulations are stating that it doesn't matter whether you're in a flood zone or not, you need to have flood insurance. So not only are we having new maps that are mandating you have to have flood insurance, because what's going to happen is the mortgage companies, once these new maps come into effect, your mortgage companies are going to be alerted to that. And once they're alerted to that, they're going to now require you to have flood insurance. Just like they require you now when you have a mortgage, you have to have homeowners insurance. So it's going to just be another insurance that you have to have. So that's why this is so important. It does apply to you. If you have a mortgage and you live in Palm Beach County, new flood maps are coming. And it's not only just the new flood maps, it's the mortgage companies are going to be requiring you to have flood insurance. And if you have certain types of insurance, like Citizens, and I think there was one other company that just also stated this, I don't recall the name, they're going to require you, regardless of whether you're in a flood zone or not, even though the majority of people are in a flood zone, that anything over $600,000 on their insurance policies are going to require flood insurance. So other companies are following. Once the new flood insurance maps are put into place, again, mortgage companies and banks are going to be requiring this. Average flood insurance per year is about $1,000. Now, both FEMA and there's now private companies that provide flood insurance. So you don't have to all go to FEMA anymore. It used to be they were the only one that you could buy flood insurance from. Kind of a monopoly there. So now there's private companies that also offer flood insurance. So definitely check around, get ahead of the curve. Like I said, Boca is kind of giving this to you as preliminary information, and it's just really, really important to listen to and get your ducks in the row and get yourself together, get your flood insurance, because again, these new maps are coming into effect. So I also wanted to show, again, most people think it's only intercoastal and the barrier islands, and that's just simply not the case. So again, this is Boca. This last rain that we just had, where we, had a week and a half of, rain on and off and so forth, and heavy, heavy rain. I mean, there was several roads in Boca and Delray and Highland Beach that were flooded. And they actually had to close I think one or two of the roads in Boca Raton also. So this is affecting us. Again, this is all from climate change. Now, this is Delray's maps, right? So Delray doesn't go as far west. Their boundary is military, and you can see anything there that has any type of blue, yellow, or green is going to, or red. I think there's some red in there by the Barrier Islands. So again, this you can see kind of how it's following. Obviously the shoreline. Then there's low-lying areas around the downtown, all the way up to George Bush. Then you see the canals are also in flood zones. You also have some low-lying areas kind of just sprouted in there somewhere. So again, this is Delray. These are the two, I guess, links that are important for Boca that Boca put out. I'm going to put them in the description section for the episode. But again, if you want to take a screenshot of this, it's really important. It's www.myboca.us/1881/ know your flood plan with hyphens in there. And then the other one is actually showing you the floodplain management. So both of these are important to get more information, and it will open you up to this type of page that I have here. Again, saying new preliminary coastal flood maps, and it gives you all the links there also. Really important to know. Okay, another part of this is building codes, right? So we know we have issues with flooding because of climate change. We know we're getting a lot more flooding prone areas. We know we're going to be required now to have flood insurance, and it's mandated. So we really need to now work on our building codes, right? So here's a perfect example. So here's what's needed to be done. So if you look at the house on the left, new construction, not only they've raised that pad up, not just 1 foot, 2 feet, 3 feet high. They put a concrete barrier around for floodwater. They've also, if you look at the house on the right, they're basically sitting there as a sitting duck, right? Totally susceptible to flooding. There's no barriers. They're down low in the grade. And so this is called canoeing, right? The canoeing effect, where you have these new properties in cities and towns that have adopted new building codes. And basically what happens is actually all the floodwaters kind of run to the older homes because they're at the low-lying area, right? Water always finds the lowest place. So we call this a canoe effect. And it's not good for the older homes that have not been, retrofitted or raised or whatever, or have some resiliency put into them and hardened, because there's a problem with the way the water's draining towards these older homes. So my suggestion would be is if you're looking for a home, make sure it's a newer home, make sure it's raised, make sure, again, we're getting these building codes have to be updated. The days of, just a foot higher or 4 foot, seawall, that's already outdated. That's gone. That needs to go. So we need to start really prepping our cities for higher, better, stronger building codes regarding flooding. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Highland Beach. So sit back and let me tell you a tale about Highland Beach. So they have this really old-fashioned thinking, and their lack of vision continues. And so basically, let me tell you a little bit about the history. So when I was vice mayor there and had to take over for a short time when the mayor passed away, we're putting together this referendum for voting. It was going to be underground utilities. It was going to be a stormwater system because Highland Beach does not have a stormwater system. Believe it or not, there's no stormwater system in Highland Beach. So what we've had in the past is severe flooding and king tides and rain showers, and there's nowhere for the water to go because we don't have a stormwater system. So we have usually massive flooding, okay? And so I was going to incorporate a stormwater system and a couple other things for the infrastructure of Highland Beach to improve it, because obviously nothing had been done since 1949. So again, the town didn't want to pay for it. I think it was $25 per month per household, and it got turned down. Okay. So the problem is that Highland Beach was built with a swale system, which is so outdated The swale system was built in the early, I want to say late or early 50s. And basically there was very few houses there. Now it's all, built up. There's concrete, again, more runoff. There's no stormwater system. So we get this massive flooding. People call it that don't want to have to pay for anything. Oh, it's just nuisance puddles. Well, it's not just nuisance puddles. So again, major problem, no stormwater system. And this is only getting worse and worse as every year goes by. So FDOT is coming in. Here's a picture of Highland Beach over this past week where we had the heavy rains. This is how Highland Beach looks. The swales are totally outdated. Highlands Beach answer to turning down the referendum and getting a stormwater system is, well, we'll just dig out the swales. So basically what happened is over the years, a lot of people had filled in the swales, concreted over them, or filled in the swales in their front yard to make it look nice so there wasn't a divot. So digging out the swales is not the answer. We had several engineers at the time that told everybody that's not going to work. The system is outdated. So we had engineers that know what they're talking about. But we still had those people that got up and say, I was, an engineer 40 years ago, and I know that that's not true. Okay. Anyway, moving forward. So what we have to do is figure out what we can do. So Highland Beach says, well, we're going to just do a swale system. We're just going to, dig out some of the swales that have been covered over, and that should suffice. Even though everyone's telling them, the engineers, that's not going to work. So this is where I'm talking about lack of vision, outdated, don't want to have to improve the infrastructure, out of touch, right? It's totally out of touch. So FDOT is coming in. They're doing a triple R project. They have to resurface the road. They're going to be adding 5-foot bike lanes, real live bike lanes, to both sides of the road. They are a minimum of 5 feet for the minimum standard. And they have told them, well, as long as we're there, we'll help you dig out a couple things with our equipment, but we don't do drainage. FDOT doesn't do drainage, right? So it's not their responsibility to make sure your town doesn't flood. It's going to be the city's responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. So somehow Highland Beach feels like they're going to have, the magical fairy come in with FDOT and clean out all their swales, and the swales are going to work and everything's going to be okay. So, this is why it's so important to have people that have vision, people that have a big picture to understand what's really going on. Because I know people don't want to pay for things. I get that. But at some point, we have pipes in the road that are crackling just by touching them. They were never replaced in 50, 60, 70 years. I mean, things like that have to be done. And there is nobody that's going to come and pay for it. And so this is the problem that you have when you have no stormwater system. You have flooding. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about, flood insurance, flood being mandated, and how it's going to affect you. I want to make sure you guys have a heads up and you understand the different cities and what's going on. So anyway, everybody in Palm Beach County, basically at one point or another is going to need flood insurance. Think about it, research it, educate yourself on it. And again, if it's not the mortgage that's requiring it, it's going to be maybe the insurance companies that require it. So again, or where you're located. So I just wanted to give a little quick update with Disney, right? We're going to get to the fun stuff now. So Disney has this new area, and it's all it's called the Journey of Water, and it's inspired by Moana. And so basically, it's not a ride. It's a walkthrough experience, and interactive with water elements, rock sculptures, and greenery. And it's kind of one of those places, I guess, that you go to kind of decompress, right? We've all been to Disney or Universal, and just it's, chaos and the kids and the rides and the lines. And they put this in there to kind of just like, have a place where you can just go and decompress and kind of, get yourself back together again. And so I just wanted to show you a couple pictures of that. And there's a little video, and kind of gives you an idea of what it's about. And again, it's just something cute. And again, you don't spend hours there, but again, it's a nice place to just kind of decompress. So here it is. Okay, so now we're getting to our new category, which I named last week, even though I'd been doing it for a few weeks, social awareness. And again, for those that are new or watching this, it's just basically a category where we kind of think about things for a minute, right? We put things in perspective about being kind to each other or really thinking about, all the controversy and chaos and arguing. And is it really necessary? And how, there's much more important things in life than all of this bickering and everything else. So it's also things that people are doing that are nice for each other and things where we can improve. So that's what this is. So the first one's really interesting. Now, I watched this. I had to watch it actually a couple times. And it was started out by saying, how many of us know our grandfather's father? And I thought about that. And I'm like, we might know their name and we might maybe know where they came from, or we might know what they did, but we really don't know much more about that. And it was kind of interesting. So I watched this, and if it's not going to matter, basically the summary of this, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, then don't spend more than 5 minutes and be upset about it, right? Because in the end, it doesn't matter. That's not what matters. So take a look at this, and hopefully you'll get, a better perspective of the craziness, and it's just so unnecessary. So enjoy.
This is really interesting, so I just wanted to share. Have you ever thought about this? In 100 years, so like 21, 23, we will all be buried with our families and friends. Strangers will live in our homes that we worked so hard to build, and someone else will own everything we have today. Most of our possessions will be given away or thrown out and destroyed, including the car that we spent a fortune on and will probably be scrapped. Our descendants will hardly know who we are, nor will they remember us. I mean, how many of us know who our grandfather's father was? After we die, we will be remembered for a few more years, and then we're just a portrait on someone's wall. And a few decades later, our history, photos, and deeds disappear into history's oblivion. We won't even be memories. If we pause one day to analyse these questions, perhaps we would understand how pointless it is for us to worry about 95% of the things that consume our minds daily. If we could only think about this, surely our approaches, our thoughts would change and we would do things differently. Perhaps we would feel more free to enjoy ourselves and our lives that we're living. Take these thoughts into the rest of your day, this week, this year, and remember the saying, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't spend more than 5 minutes being upset by it.
Okay, so now this was for the animal lovers, and sometimes we think that kindness and compassion and empathy, is only for us, right? For humans, or it should be, let's put it that way. And when I saw this, I was like, gosh, animals are, they have the same emotions. They have the same feelings. They feel things just like we do. And, these two got together, this horse and this dog, and it just struck me as, watching it just as, kindness is so simple to do. Compassion, empathy, and why not, right? So hopefully you get the same message I got out of this. Enjoy.
I'm going under and I fear this time there's no one to save me. This all or nothing really got a way of driving me crazy. I need somebody to heal, somebody to know, somebody to have, somebody to hold. It's easy to say, but it's never the same. I guess I kinda like the way you numbed all the pain, and now the day bleeds into nightfall.
Okay, now this is something that, again, makes you really stop and think. We could really improve on some things too. So Western culture does not really, unfortunately, respect their elders. They don't really care for them. They don't, in most cases, not everybody, that's a blanket statement, but they're not known for that in the Western culture versus, more Oriental or Asian cultures or even, South American, where, there's extended families and everybody takes care of everybody. and so forth. I know in like Italy and things like that, they don't even have, or they have very few, assisted living or nursing homes, things like that. The family takes care of them. So I know everybody's circumstances are different, but I just wanted to point out how this is Western culture in a nutshell. That was the title of this video clip. And watching it, I just sat there and I said to myself, this reminded me of when I used to commute 2.5 hours each way in New York from Long Island to this Manhattan, working there. And I was sitting down on the train and a pregnant woman came on. And I was surrounded all by men. And not one man got up to give their seat to this pregnant person. And she was pregnant. I mean, 9 months pregnant. And I got up and I said to myself, what's wrong with this picture? I mean, I don't get it. I don't get why kindness is just so devalued in our society. So anyway, this is a little video to kind of give you an idea of that. Okay, science and technology. We've got a bunch of fun things today. So going from the wheelchair that we just were with the kindness, this is a new technology. And it kind of reminds me of, some of the things we've had in the past that, with balance and things like that. And so this wheelchair, you can actually go downstairs with it and things like that. So this is what's coming. This is great. I think it's going to give a lot more mobility to people. And so I saw it and I was like, I've got to, show you guys what's coming up in science and technology. So enjoy. Okay, so this was Dubai. They have a whole museum there for the future. And it's all about what their city's going to look like in the future. Now, again, this is far in the future. This is, well, not that far, but 2070. But, they already have, I think, the highest buildings and this and that. And I know Delray, I know you're not going to have that, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about just being able to think into the future, just like have a vision of what it is that your city and what improvements and what infrastructure and things like that. So this I thought was interesting. I think a lot of people might like seeing what's going to happen in the future, and they already have a lot of this going on there already. So take a look.
Next to the metro station, we have the Hyperloop in action connecting Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Roughly will take 9 minutes. And over here we have the drones, which will be used for delivery, and this is the drone station over here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so as far as this is kind of interesting. So we've all seen, they have some bathrooms where you turn the switch and the gas that's in between the glass changes, and it makes it translucent. Or opaque, that you can't see into whatever room. Usually it's a bathroom or something. So this is actually really interesting. It's just like a vinyl that you put on the window, and then you just use a remote, and it just makes the windows and everything opaque, so you don't have to worry about curtains or window treatments or whatever you want to have on your windows. So I thought this was really interesting, right? This is, again, another step into the future, taking that older technology that's been around for a while, making it flexible, making it, you can put it wherever you want. It doesn't have to be built in. And so take a look. Okay, this is kind of on the same wavelength. They now have these sheets again that have that are permeated with, I guess, lights or chips or something, and they actually can show video, all kinds of images, and it's flexible and it's interchangeable, and you can take it on and off and things like that. So this is great for businesses, any kind of thing, schools, anything you want. So I thought this when I saw this, I was like, this is fantastic. So technology wise.
This is the hottest flexible LED transparent film screen in 2023. 3mm ultra-thin design. Transparency 90%. No structure required. No need to apply glue.
Okay, now I always have my car for somebody that likes cars, for people who are car people. So this is the first car that's actually the Federal Aviation Administration has certified for testing in California. It's a startup, and they actually had this at a auto show. So this is the first flying car that they now have put into an auto show that they have, in California, Miami, New York, whatever. It will be able to carry 1 or 2 occupants. We'll have a road range of 200 miles and a flying range of 110 miles. The company expects to sell this vehicle for $300,000, and actually, first delivery will actually be in 2025. So now these were out at the car shows. They're approved by the Federal Aviation Administration, and they're ready to go. Right, so I think they're taking orders 2025, 2 years away, people. Right, not a lot. So it's amazing what's coming down the pike. So take a look at that and enjoy. Okay, so for this week's art, we have a little bit of a theme going. So murals, right? So I really thought about this. I know a lot of people are turned off to murals, and I'm not sure why. I think a lot of it probably has to do with the style. We don't always need to have the graffiti type of murals, right? They can be really nice, very classic, very simple. They can be ocean-inspired animals. They can be, like the Guy Harveys, where whales and sailfish and things like that. So there are different styles, right, of murals, and maybe that's one of the issues. But I saw some of these, and I thought the last one especially I'll talk about. But this was beautiful, right? So you have this concrete wall of this dilapidated building, and they built this beautiful mural, and it just it creates beauty from old buildings. This was again for the dog lovers, right? You have a blank space there, and just a picture of a beautiful dog. This was, a mural that actually was like giving you a peek inside this beautiful home, mansion, whatever. So it's an outside mural that appears to look inside. And then I thought this would be great also for Boca, Delray, to have some murals that are actually, photo opportunities, right? So there's this picture of this girl holding this glass, and the whole picture opportunity is to stand inside the glass like you're stuck in the glass, right? And so again, using imagination, using vision. Murals don't only have to be, graffiti style murals. They can be very many things. So again, there's a place and area and need and desire for all types of murals. So when I saw this, I was like, what a great opportunity, right? To have, I even thought maybe even something like by Brightline, right? Having a mural, maybe on the side of the parking garage or whatever, where people can have photo opportunities, right? Having some trains or something like that. And I don't know. So I just thought it was great. So this was cute because I got so much feedback on the dragonfly eyes, right? Where the dragonfly was just basically sitting there looking like he just saw a ghost or himself or something. I don't know. Had these giant eyes. So when I came across this week, and I was like, wow, so many people loved that beautiful dragonfly, that blue dragonfly. I was like, this is fantastic. So this is actually a close up of a jumping spider, and he looks just kind of perplexed and scared, I guess, as you do, looking at him. So it was just cute. So I thought I'd include that. And then this is kind of just a fall picture. I was like, we're in fall, and in Florida, fall means falling palm fronds, So, but I was like trying to give us some inspiration here. Yes, it is really fall. I noticed like on, watching the news or whatever, I see people in New York and, they're wearing jackets or sweaters. And I was like, oh, isn't that nice? So I was like, this is fall. And Florida does have some signs of fall, but they're very, very, you have to really look for them. They're very intricate. And, but anyway, so I just wanted to be inspired by that. And then just to wrap up, again, please subscribe, please like, right? Likes are great. The more you like, the more interaction I get on my YouTube, and I get more visuals from it. And then also email me, please, your assignment this week. How has this podcast helped you as far as new ideas or things that you learned or whatever? Give me some inspiration of how this has helped you. I'd love to know. Also, I'm going to end with my art. I'm actually speaking with someone next week that I'm going to start showing some other art from our local artists, in addition to my art. And I think that would be great to kind of get some art and different ideas of art that we have very talented local artists here. So we're going to start doing that. So anyway, have a great week or two. I'm going to see you soon. And if you have any questions or comments, please contact me again in the middle, bdh@gmail.com, and see you next time.